So all Xiaogusti yoga sessions are recorded and then podcasted, so that anyone who misses them can always go back and actually listen to the sessions and they don't miss anything. Thank you all for being here so much and for sharing a little bit of yourselves. This is amazing. It's amazing that on January 1st, on a Sunday, people showed up to talk philosophy and divine masculinity in a culture that is so toxic, and in a culture where you are expected to be at home hungover right now. That is the culture that we're all expected to be in. That's toxic masculinity. That you're expected to be unhealthy. And you're expected to do that as your due. You're entitled to hurt yourself in a toxic masculine culture. And so within our community, within our society, this is what we've come here today to talk about, is toxic masculinity, and how do we deal with toxic masculinity? What is it, how is it, and how do we overcome it? And in our society, we see it often. Now, is there anyone here who wants to give me their brief definition, couple of sentences, of what toxic masculinity is to them? Does anyone want to share? Anyone? Go ahead, Lizzie.
Cool. Yeah, the enemy without and within, who wants to destroy me as a transgender woman.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone have any other anything to add to that, in the sense that every day, how do you see it? How does it manifest?
Yeah, I was privileged enough to go to a high school that offered psychology senior year, and a teacher named Dr. Fox, who's no longer with us, described this concept, and he didn't describe it as masculinity, but he shared a couple words that to me really resonate with what I see as, if not masculine, then absolutely patriarchal, which is the words bigger, better, faster, more, and then we added also now. So bigger, better, faster, more now. And I think that really sums up my interpretation of masculinity. We want it to be bigger, we want everything to be faster, we want to get it instantly, we want more of it, and we want it right now. And to me that really kind of sums up at least how I view masculine energy, and how we can see it kind of manifesting in our society. Everything from the microwave to war.
So we got a couple of really good definitions. Because you see, toxic masculinity comes from patriarchy. And what people don't realize is when people hear patriarchy, they think, oh, you're just a man hater, right? Patriarchy doesn't mean men. Patriarchy does not mean men. Patriarchy is a system of power whereby we are all convinced that toxic masculinity should be in charge. That's what patriarchy is. And what toxic masculinity is control. It's control, it's domination, and it manifests in the form of greed and lust. Greed and lust make as much money as possible and sexually exploit as many people as possible, and exploit the bodies of as many people as possible. And most of the time, the only reason why they want a lot of money is so that they can exploit the bodies of a lot of people. And they exploit the bodies of a lot of people in order to get a lot of money, in order to exploit the bodies of a lot of people. That is what toxic masculinity is. And it manifests in every single one of us. It's not just the men. Women can be patriarchal. Queer people can be patriarchal. Trans people can be patriarchal. Non-binary people can be patriarchal. And they can all exhibit qualities of toxic masculinity. That's why even within our organizing circles, we see this. And it manifests and it becomes an obstacle, continuous obstacles that we have to face. And sometimes we're able to overcome it, and often it breaks our movements. It breaks our movements. So one thing is that as we're sitting here, this is called satsang. what we're doing right now. When we come together in community, we come together to discourse on philosophy, on divinity, on the beauty of the divine path. We come together with respect for each other. And that means that we come together in with a loving heart. We come together with an open mind. We come together willing to learn and willing to listen. And you're not required to be tortured. So at no point should you be in pain. So if you need to take a chair and sit on a chair, that's okay. If you need to move your body, that's okay. The only thing that we ask that people don't do is sit with their legs pointing outwards. And the reason why is because there's an altar right there, and it is considered impolite to show the bottom of your feet to anyone, particularly the person teaching you, and God. So that is one of the one particular standard that we use. But it's okay to move and shift around in other ways, okay? Why am I starting the year with this? So, okay, I thought it did something. Why am I starting the year with this? I'm starting the year with this, Michael brought up a little bit, that we're seeing this within our organizing. It's showing up. It's popping up within our organizing, within our personal lives, within our communities, within our families. And particularly in stressful situations like when winter comes along, when things get hard, when you're stressed out, when you're tired, when you're run down, when it's the holidays and there's a lot of pressure on, when you're supposed to be exhibiting toxic masculinity, spend, spend, spend. That's what this capitalist culture is, right? We just went through 2-3 months of buy as much crap as possible and give it to as many people as possible so that they can be as unhealthy as possible and expect to get a lot of crap back. That's what we just went through. That's going to bring out a lot of toxic masculinity tendencies. And so in some ways, during this time is actually some of the times when we see it the worst. And what you'll notice, especially within like our communities, where we're, justice communities, social justice communities, when we're organizing, often conflict comes up in the winter. And I've experienced this often, is that it will come up in the winter. The reason why is because during the summer, you're so busy getting out there and doing actions, you just go, 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 go. And then during the winter, you have time to stop and think about all the ways that everyone else got on your nerves. And then you're like, oh, I'm really angry about it. And all of a sudden, but at the same time, it's a good thing, because then that means that you're able to work it out. That means that you have an opportunity to come together, talk to each other, start to understand, why did I behave this way? Why did you behave this way? Why did we say these things? Why did we do these things? Why did that conflict come about? And so this time of year is a time particularly beneficial where we should be sitting and contemplating our own actions. We should be reflecting. And on New Year's Day, we should be saying to ourselves, do I want to continue to behave in this fashion? Do I want to continue these patterns of behavior? Do I want these patterns of behavior to continue around me? Or do I want to do something to interrupt that? Do I want to do something to stop that? Because as activists in a community that is fighting systems of oppression, we are constantly trying to interrupt that system. But if we're not interrupting that same system within ourselves, we are fighting a losing battle. So that's why I'm starting this. Because it was requested and because it makes sense, particularly for this time of year and particularly for what we're all experiencing. So, as I said, I talked about toxic masculinity, it comes from patriarchy. And what the point that was brought up was bigger, better, faster, now, right? That's because capitalism, colonialism, racism, all come from patriarchy, right? They all bigger, better, faster. I want it now, 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 now. That's capitalism. And that comes from patriarchy. Greed, I want. I'm never gonna stop wanting. It doesn't matter how much I get, I still want more. Yeah, that's also lust, comes from lust. Greed is a manifestation of lust. What is lust? Lust doesn't just mean sexual desire, okay? Lust means wanting pleasure for your body. That's what lust means. And the patriarchy has told us that this should be the state that you're perpetually in. You're perpetually in a state of lust and in a state of desire to satisfy that lust, but you're never going to satisfy that lust. Never going to satisfy that lust because you are not your body. You're not your body. The patriarchy has convinced you, you are your body. That's what patriarchy does. It tells you, you are your body, all you need to do is satisfy this body, and whoever you have to hurt to satisfy this body and fulfill these desires is your number one priority. So you have people going and colonizing other people, stealing their land, stealing their resources, stealing their water, killing their animals, taking their forests, destroying their environment, destroying their atmosphere, taking their precious metals and minerals and fossil fuels. We call them fossil fuels. That's a very arrogant capitalistic thing to call the body of Mother Earth. It's very arrogant. Coal, oil, gas, these are parts of the body of our mother. And yet we call them fuels. That is toxic masculinity implanted in your brain. It's been implanted in us. That we don't refer to that as the body of Mother Earth. We don't say, hey, stop taking out Mother Earth's blood. Stop cutting out her lungs. When we're talking about the forest and the forest being cut down, those are Mother Earth's lungs. We're just cutting them out. Imagine if someone came up to you and cut out your lungs. Would you be able to breathe? No. And hence the planet gets hotter and hotter and hotter. Have you ever tried suffocating yourself? Have you ever done that? Have you ever got underneath a blanket and just tried to breathe underneath that blanket? How long could you manage without coming up for air? Because you were exhaling all this carbon, right? You were breathing in the oxygen. After a point, there wasn't any oxygen. Oh, can someone go open the door? At a certain point, there wasn't any more oxygen left, but you're still breathing out carbon. And what happened? It got really hot under there, didn't it? So when we see, we can see it within ourselves. We don't need to do a scientific experiment. We can see within ourselves what happens when you can't breathe. Mother Earth can't breathe. That is what toxic masculinity has done to our planet. And that is what it is doing to us. When you're in panic, what happens? You can't breathe, really. You feel restricted, you start sweating, you get really hot, you start to struggle, you start trying to struggle. It's a panic attack, right? You're trying to survive. That is a result of the toxic masculinity that we live in. Because in a toxic masculine culture, you're in this culture where you're told you always have to want, and you always have to fulfill your desires, but you're never going to fulfill those desires. So you always feel unfulfilled. And because you always feel unfulfilled, you're always feeling like you're a failure. You're always feeling like you're a failure. Oh, I didn't make enough money this year. Oh, I didn't have sex with enough people this year. Or, if I did have sex, I didn't have enough of that sex. I wasn't exploiting my body and someone else's body enough. I should have been doing it more, right? Or longer. That's what we're told. And when we can't do that, we're failures. That's what we're told in a patriarchal culture. You are a failure if you cannot do these things. So because you feel like a failure, and if that goes on for too long, you get depression, you start to feel anxious, you start to feel stressed out, you take it out on others. Who do you take it out on? Those who can't defend themselves. Who do you take it out on? Those with no power in our society. You take it out on women. You take it out on queer and transgender people. You take it out on people of color, right? If you work in a workplace, you'll take it out on those who are beneath you in your workplace. If you are in a position of any power, you will take it out on those beneath you. That's what toxic masculinity is. So now that we've talked a little bit about that, we see what the problem is, right? We're surrounded by this. And it seems like there's no escape. Hannah, are you comfortable? Oh, I wasn't sure.
Christian, yeah.
Afrin, do you want to come sit here? There's space here.
I'm good.
Okay, cool. So here's the thing. We see this, we experience this, we know this. There was no denial at all in this room as I was talking about this. Everyone was like, yeah. Right? Everyone gets it. We feel inherently that something is wrong with our society. Here's why. No one ever taught us what true masculinity is. No one ever taught us what positive masculinity is. And no one ever taught us what divine masculinity is. No one ever taught us that. We may have been brought up in cultures and societies that have shown God as a patriarchal figure, as a masculine figure, but even with that masculinity, there is toxic masculinity inherent within it. And so we reject it. But in truth, there is divine masculinity. There are philosophies that will go deep into this, that will explain it to you, but you never had access to it. And the access that you did have was bastardized and co-opted and stolen and twisted to make money. Why? Because toxic masculinity means you can exploit and take whatever you want in the pursuit of your desires. So they steal from other philosophies. They take from other people's cultures. They say, oh, I can take this, I can teach this. Doesn't matter whether or not I have permission from those cultures, from that lineage, from those gurus, from those masters. Doesn't matter if I have permission or not, I'm entitled. That's why we have this yogi community that does more harm than good. And it wants to pretend like it's doing good. It's not. It's not. And I've seen this firsthand. So what we have to understand is we have to understand what divine masculinity is. And within that, we have to understand what divine femininity is. Because masculinity teaches us that anything feminine is inherently wrong. You run like a girl. Stop crying like a girl. Why are you so emotional? Don't be gay. These are all toxic masculine tendencies that push down anything that is not perceived as masculine within a patriarchal context. So what is real masculinity? What is divine masculinity? And alongside divine masculinity, what is divine femininity? Because if we understand these things, we can cultivate those things within us. And if we can cultivate those things within us, we have a chance at fighting the toxic masculinity that has been implanted within us. You're not born hating women. You're taught that. You're not born hating your body. You're taught that. You're not born judging people's skin color. You were taught that. So those things have been implanted into us. But these natural qualities that we have, that have been suppressed by the brainwashing, by the indoctrination, right, of toxic masculinity, if we cultivate those natural qualities that are already within us, we have a chance of fighting those things that are trying to oppress others and everyone else around us. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to tell you some stories. I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm going to be a little bit counterintuitive today. Because normally when you're talking about the divine masculine, it's intuitive to talk about Ram, right? Ram. The story of Ram comes from the Ramayana. And Ram was an incarnation of the divine masculine. Ram took birth to be the ideal man. The ideal man. So it makes sense to talk about Ram. But I'm not going to talk about him today. We're going to talk about him in other sessions. But today, I'm actually going to talk about Krishna. Krishna was also a form of the divine masculine. Krishna was also an incarnation of the divine masculine. But Krishna took birth in a time that was much more crooked. than in Ram's time. And it's not that there wasn't deceit and corruption, all of those things in Ram's time, there were. But Ram, as the ideal man, he was very straightforward. He was very straightforward about everything. Krishna wasn't very straightforward. He went about things in some different ways. And the reason why was because the circumstances were a little bit different. He was around people who weren't as straightforward. During Ram's time, there was corruption, there was treachery, there was deceit. But at the end of the day, if someone didn't like you, it became very clear that they didn't like you. In Krishna's time, there were people who said that they were your friend and stabbed you in the back. Right? There were people who smiled and invited you into their house to eat and then poisoned you. So in those crooked times, Krishna had to exhibit certain tendencies in order to overcome those crooked realities. We live in extremely crooked times. We live in such times where, even within our organizing communities, there are moments when we don't know who to trust. We live in such times where, even in our families, we don't know if someone is trying to exploit our body. And so, what Krishna taught is a little bit more along the lines of what I want to talk about today. Because we're going to go deeper into the confusion within ourselves about who am I, and why am I here, and what am I doing, and why am I exhibiting these tendencies when I could be exhibiting these other tendencies. That's why I'm going to talk about Krishna today. So there's a story. So Krishna was a divine descension of God, and he was the supreme person, and he was, had the ultimate power, and the ultimate strength, and the ultimate beauty, and the ultimate love, and all of those different things. Now Krishna manifested alongside the divine feminine in the form of Radha. Radha and Krishna are one and the same. Okay, they are non-different from each other. So we tend to think of these things as different. Masculinity is different, femininity is different. No, they are within each other. And they come from each other. And they fulfill each other. And they are within all of us, right? To be masculine doesn't mean, okay, let's figure out how to be a man. No, that's not the point. It would be nice if men did figure that out. That would be really nice. But the truth is we all have divine masculine tendencies. And we all have divine masculine qualities and divine feminine qualities. And that's why it doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman or trans or queer or non-binary or anywhere on the spectrum. We can all exhibit these qualities. We can all manifest these qualities if we know how to do it and we're on the right path. And we have the right guidance. So in this story, Krishna takes birth in India. And he was a prince. And he had to do a lot of things in order to deal with the corruption within his own kingdom. One of those was that he had to defeat his own uncle. His own uncle was an incredibly patriarchal, evil person who destroyed many things. He went out and tortured people. He was a serial rapist. He stole from others. He was a colonizer. He was a racist. He was a capitalist. He went and stole everyone's wealth. He didn't care about what belonged to anyone else. No, it's mine. I'm entitled. And Krishna took birth in order to destroy this person. Now, when he destroyed his uncle, now, don't forget, that was his uncle, his own family, right? Because what we have to understand is toxic masculinity is everywhere. It can be in those closest to you. And in the story, yeah, there was a very literal, he literally killed him. But also what we have to do is we have to kill off those parts within ourselves. We have to figure out a way to end it within ourselves and figure out a way to help those around us end it. But also one thing to remember is you can only help those who want to help themselves. Yeah, you have to remember that. So you are not responsible for anyone else's actions. You are not responsible. But if you can help, we should help. So within this story, Krishna kills his uncle, Kans. Now Kans's father-in-law was also a patriarch. And Kans's father-in-law was very angry because now that his son-in-law was dead, his two daughters were widows and he no longer had control over this vast area that he had control with in partnership with his son-in-law. So this was all political machinations, okay? This was all how do we colonize? How do we control? How do we steal? How do we dominate? How do we make sure everyone knows we're number one? How do we remain the superpower? So Jarasandh, who was his father-in-law, Gans's father-in-law, he starts to attack Krishna's kingdom. Krishna's kingdom was called the land of Mathura. That was Krishna's motherland. It's a particular part of India. And so Krishna and his brother and his family, his father and his grandfather and all of the courtiers and all of the warriors, they would go out and they would fight Jarasandh, who came and kept attacking them in ways and ways. And Jarasandh was incredibly strong because he colonized all of these people. So he had all of these lands and all of these armies and all of these resources. And Mathura was surrounded, holding him off with Krishna's power, holding him off. 18 times they did this. 18 times they went to war. 18 times they held him off. And it got to a point where Krishna looks around him. He looks around him, he sees all of the widows. He sees the last few remaining living men that they have, the warriors that they still have. And he says, we're not going to be able to hold them off for much longer. We need to find a way out of this. But he knows that Jarasandh is not going to stop. Jarasandh is toxic masculinity, and toxic masculinity is relentless. Greed and lust. Greed and lust, these two things are relentless. And so Krishna knows he's never going to stop. That means I have to do something to safeguard my people that takes them away from this threat, this continuous threat. And so he goes to his court, and he wasn't the king. His grandfather was the king. And he goes to this court and he says to the king, Sire, I have a proposal. With your permission, I will put it before the court. His grandfather says, of course. Go ahead, you're the savior of Mathura. You killed Gans. You saved us all from that tyrant. His own grandfather, Gans's father, had been imprisoned by Gans. This was how evil Gans was. He imprisoned his own dad. And then he imprisoned his own sister, Devki. And he killed every child that she had so that they couldn't fight him. Krishna was one of those children. Krishna was her 8th son who got smuggled out of prison and raised in a different place, and then he came back to destroy his uncle. There's a whole backstory to it. I'll tell you about it. So his grandfather says, no, you're the savior of Mathura. Of course we will listen to any proposal that you have. Krishna says, I propose that our people move to a new land. And they say, what? What? He says, yes. They say, are you saying we should abandon our motherland, our birthright, the land of our birth, our people, where we have lived for generation after generation? You're saying we should run away? Krishna says, yeah. And they say, but you'll be called Ranchor. Ranchor means he who runs from battle. You'll be called a coward. You'll be called Ranchor. Krishna says, so? And they say, but your reputation. And he says, I'm not concerned with what people think about me. I'm concerned about my people. And I'm concerned about whether they live or die. I'm concerned about our culture. I'm concerned about our way of life. I'm concerned about our philosophy. I'm concerned about our women. I'm concerned about our children. I'm concerned about our holy ones who depend upon our protection. If we do not safeguard them, if we do not protect them, everything will be destroyed by this force, this patriarchal force. My reputation means nothing before that. It means nothing. What was Krishna saying? He was saying that our ego has nothing to do with it. When we really want to do the right thing, we let it go. When we really want to do the right thing, divine masculinity rises up. And what is divine masculinity? Protect. That is what divine masculinity is. And when you are protecting, you don't care what people think about you. You don't care. It doesn't matter. Krishna says, they can call me whatever they want. They can even call me Ranchor. But if they call me with love, I will answer. If you call Krishna with love, he will answer. That's why there's a temple to Krishna. And in that temple, Krishna is worshipped as Ranchod. It's my temple. It's my family's temple. My uncles served there as priests for generations and generations and generations. Ranchod is worshipped. Why? Because it's divine masculinity. Divine masculinity protects. Divine masculinity has no ego. Divine masculinity responds only to love, not aggression, not force. He's not just going to be endlessly fighting. No, there are times when strategic retreat is necessary. And it's not like he gave up. It's not like he was like, okay, we're just going to walk away. He was like, no, I'm going to move my people to safety, and then I'm going to work out a political maneuver to ensure that this person goes down, because this person cannot be allowed to continue. This colonization, this control, this capitalism, this patriarchy, it must end. But right now, we are not in a position to end it. We have to work towards that end. But at this point in time, we have to strategically retreat. So it's not just about, okay, suicide mission, off you go. That's not what this is. We're not just here to be martyrs. We have to be smart about what we're doing. We have to be smart about how we protect each other, because the movement matters. The movement has to survive. The movement has to live. And that means, if you're in danger, retreat, regroup, put up defenses, figure out how to preserve what you have, figure out how to make it thrive, and once you're thriving, you move forward. And that's what Krishna did. And when he moved to a new land, it doesn't mean he went and colonized a bunch of places. What he actually did was he created this divine island. He created a divine island in the ocean, surrounded on all sides by water, defended on all sides, right? And within this divine island, he created a space that was self-sufficient, that was entirely protected, that was beautiful, that had all manners of wealth. All of their basic needs were met, and all of their other needs were met. Basic needs are one thing: food, water, air, shelter, right? That's one thing, we all need that. But that's to survive. What do we need to thrive? We need love, we need beauty, we need peace, we need safety. Those are the things that we need to thrive. He created that. What does that mean? Oh, are we able to just go and create a divine island somewhere and live there and, oh yeah, everything's fine? You are that divine island. Dwarka. His city was called Dwarka. Dwarka means the city of gates. This is a gate. This is a gate. This is a gate. These are gates. This is a gate. All of the orifices of your body, those are the gates. Dwarka is you. And within Dwarka, Krishna dwelled. And he dwelled in Dwarka, and he made it thrive. And divine masculinity manifests when the desire to protect manifests, when the ego is nullified, and the will to love, the will to thrive, the will to be peaceful, the will to grant safety and shelter thrives. Krishna dwells. That is a sign that Krishna is dwelling within you. That's what that means. So, I'm going to tell you another story. In this story, we're still within Krishna's lifetime. And you see, Krishna was, as you can clearly see, someone who understood politics. As you can clearly see, he wasn't just someone who's just going to come up and brute force, all right, let's just take it outside. He wasn't that type of person. He could if he wanted to be, but he didn't. But if the situation did not require that, and we could resolve it with talk, and we could resolve it with negotiation and peace and trade and all of those things, he was well up for that. And so Krishna was someone who created a living example called Dwarka that everyone else looked up to. If we could be like Dwarka, the whole world would be perfect. And so his cousins, the Pandavas, they were trying to be like that. They were following Krishna's example. They worshipped Krishna as the divine masculine. They followed his example. They followed his instructions and his guidance. And they said, how can we live like this? But within their family, there was corruption within their family. And the Pandavas were one branch of a larger family called the Kuru family. And the Kuru family was a very, very large ancient family that ruled Delhi, which is the capital of the motherland, of my people. Delhi, today's capital, was their capital. So the Kuru people, the Kuru family, and their kingdom was absolutely essential to the political welfare of India and of the whole world, because the scriptures talk in the context of the whole world. So this particular family was very politically important, and the Pandavas were a branch of the family that was listening to Krishna's guidance. But the other side of the family, they were called the Kauravas, they were corrupt. They were patriarchal. They were toxic masculinity. They were greedy. They were lustful. They wanted. It's never enough. Didn't matter that this was their kingdom. No, they wanted more. Didn't matter that they already had a wife. No, I want more. I want your wife. I want that woman. I want her. All at the same time. It's never enough for them. And these people had done so many atrocities in the pursuit of their desires, in their ambition, that they had performed all manner of treachery against their own brothers, the Pandavas, their cousins. They had cheated them in a dice match, gambling. Gambling is toxic masculinity, by the way. And capitalism is just another form of gambling. That's what capitalism is. Wall Street is a giant casino. That's what it is. And that's why it's evil. That's why it's evil. There is no, oh no, if we just make it better. No, there is no making it better. It is evil. That's what it is. You don't live and thrive in an evil system. Therefore, that system has to be dismantled. But the Pandavas had been cheated out of their half of the kingdom, out of their lands, out of their wealth, out of everything that they had worked hard to make thrive, to make into another Dwarka, to make into a place where people were safe and sheltered and thriving and able to pursue spiritual life. Our problem is we're so mired in toxic masculinity that we can't even look towards a spiritual life. How do we even start when all we're trying to do is survive? And within surviving, I got all these desires, I need to fulfill them. You don't even have food, but you're going out to get drugs. You don't even have shelter, yet you're trying to exploit someone's body. We're so mired in it, we're so totally wrapped up in it. There's no time, there's no way for us to even look for a spiritual life. But when you have your basic needs met, when you're safe, when you're in an environment that nurtures, you would be able to pursue those things that we all need in order to thrive. That was what the Pandavas were trying to create. That was what Krishna had created. That was what they were trying to create so that everyone could have this. And they were cheated out of that. It was taken from them. And in the process of that gambling match, their wife was also abused. Because remember, lust, greed. And so their wife Draupadi had been abused in horrific ways. Horrific ways before everyone. And so there became this enmity between the Pandavas and the Kauravas, the two branches of this family. And it got to a point of war, where the Pandavas said, we've tried everything. We've tried every single avenue for peace. We've tried every single negotiation for peace that we could, and we couldn't get it. The Kauravas were determined to go to war, because toxic masculinity says, I'm never going to back down from a fight. I will control you and subdue you using force. That is what toxic masculinity says. No matter what. I will fight. It thrives off it. I love it. I want it. More, more, more. Have you ever seen that film Fight Club? That film is toxic masculinity in a movie. That's what that is. All of these men get together and they're like, we gotta fight, we gotta do something to make ourselves feel like men. And even though they don't have any issue with each other, but they get together and duke it out for no reason. And that supposedly is how they feel good about themselves. It's really horrific. Because in that place, Dvarka cannot manifest. Krishna cannot dwell in that place when all you want to do is fight. But here's the thing. This was one family, right? They want to go to war with each other. That means if you're going to go to war, you're going to go to all your friends and your allies and your other family members, and you're going to ask them whose side they're on. Right? That's what you're going to do. When it comes to war, you're like, okay, we need to go round up all of our people. Which side are you on? You on that side? You on this side? Who? So both sides went to Krishna, because this was his family, right? These were his cousins. On the Pandava side, Krishna was related to them because the Pandava's mother, Kunti, was his aunt. And on the Kaurava side, Krishna was related to them because Krishna's son was married to Duryodhana's daughter. Duryodhana was one of them. And his daughter was married to Krishna's son. So if you do anything to get on their bad side, then their daughter is going to make your son's life hell. And on this side, you don't want to upset your aunt and her children. Because, you see, what people don't know, and this is where everyone gets confused when it comes to spirituality. Why does God allow bad things to happen? What people don't realize is God is impartial. God is impartial. God loves everyone. We are all His family. We are all His family. And when we go to God and we ask for help, He's going to give it. But He's going to give you what you want, because He loves you and He's your family. So Duryodhana and Krishna, Arjun, who was one of the Pandavas, both came to Krishna. Krishna's in his bedchamber. The gods let them in because they're his family. So there's no reason to bar his door against his own family. So the gods let them in. Krishna's sleeping in his bed. And Duryodhana came in first. And he saw that Krishna was sleeping. He was like, oh, fine. And he went and sat on the side on a chair, waiting for Krishna to wake up. If you've gone to ask someone for something, you don't want to rudely awake them, right? Like, you don't want to get on their bad side already. So he's like, oh, fine, I'll just wait. Arjun came in second. And Arjun came in, saw that Krishna was asleep. And he didn't sit down on the side. He went and he stood at the foot of Krishna's bed, his hands folded. He stood there, waiting. Duryodhana's like this, on the side. Krishna wakes up. He wakes up, he sits up, he sees Arjun. He says, Arjun, you're here? When did you get here? And Duryodhana says, I was here first. And Krishna looks to the side and he's like, oh, you're here too? How nice. And Duryodhana says, yeah, well, I got here first. And then Krishna's like, okay, great, but I saw Arjun first. He was right in front of me. But anyway, that's okay, that's fine. Why are you here? Is there something I can do for you? You're my family. And Duryodhana says, well, as you know, it's very sad, but we're going to go to war. And so I've come, you're my family. I've come to ask for your help, Krishna. And Krishna looks at Arjun and he says, is that why you're here too? And Arjun says, yes, Krishna, that's why I'm here. And he says, well, I love you both. You're both my family. If someone comes to me and asks for something, I will give it. So I'll give you both help. They say, what do you mean? You're going to fight on both sides? How does that work? He's like, no. I'm not going to fight on either side. Because this is a war between both of you. But I will help both sides. And they're like, what does that mean? He says, on one side, I will give my army, my vast, undefeated, divine army. And on the other side, it's just me, alone, unarmed, because I will not fight in this war. I will not bear weapons in this war. I will not fight my own family. I will not fight or choose between either of you. What do you want? Do you want my power, or do you want me? And he says, Arjun gets first choice. Why? Arjun's younger. And in our culture, the younger people get first choice. And Duryodhana says, hey, wait a minute, I got here first. And Krishna says to him, hey, Duryodhana, when you were in that gambling match, right? When you were in that gambling match with your brothers, who went first? You did, because you were playing against your older brother, right? You had the first throw of the dice. You took advantage of it then. Now Arjun gets to choose. Go on, Arjun. Tell us. What do you want? My army or me? And Arjun doesn't hesitate. He says, I choose you. I choose you. Krishna says, me? Are you sure? I won't have any weapons. I will not lift any weapons. I will not fight. I will be alone and unarmed. Do you want only me? Krishna says, I don't need you to fight for me. I need you to be with me. I don't need your power. I need you. Krishna says, okay. And Duryodhana says, well, I'm really sad to hear that, because I would have loved for you to be with me, Krishna. But since this is what my younger brother wants, I'll just have to take the army. And Krishna says, okay, go ahead, you can go outside, go and speak to my commanders, tell them that I said everything's okay, and that they are yours to command. And he leaves. And at this point, Krishna says to Arjun, why did you choose me? And Arjun says, because in this war, I know that this is a war of righteousness. I know that we are up against a relentless force. I know that we are up against this evil that will never stop. And I know that the only way to come up against it is with you beside me. Krishna, will you be my charioteer? In my chariot, in this war, when I go to war, I don't need you to pick up weapons. I need you to drive my chariot. Will you guide me? Will you be my guide? Will you stand with me every single moment in this war? Krishna says, yes, I will do that. So what just happened here? What just happened? God, the supreme being, consented to be a servant. A charioteer is not your boss. A charioteer is your servant. And the warrior says, take me over there. And the charioteer says, okay. And takes you over there. And he says, take me over there. And he says, okay, I'll take you over there. The charioteer's job is to steer through the battlefield in a way that protects his rider and also ensures that his rider is able to wage the best war, right? To maneuver, to cover the infantry, to cover the cavalry, all of those things that a chariot rider, warrior is supposed to do. This is this particular tactic of war. That's what a charioteer's job is to protect their rider, is to look out for their interests, is to serve them and follow their orders. You're not supposed to just go rogue. You do what your warrior wants. So he consented to be a servant. He consented to be unarmed. He said, I will be unarmed. I'm not going to fight this war for you. So what does that mean when we're looking at toxic masculinity, when we're looking at divine masculinity? Arjun here exhibited divine masculinity. He wasn't expecting anyone else to fight his war for him. He wasn't a coward. He wasn't saying, oh, you just do all the work for me. I'm entitled. Toxic masculinity is a very strange and contradictory thing. Because on one hand it will say, never back down from a fight. And on the other hand it will say, do whatever you can to get others to do the work for you. Toxic masculinity is true cowardice. That's what toxic masculinity is. And true masculinity is courage. True masculinity is where you exhibit courage. If you have to stand up for a fight, you stand up. Why? To protect others, not because your ego's involved. Arjun wasn't there because his ego was involved. Arjun was there, the Pandavas were there because they knew that if we do not defeat this force, this greed, this lust, this relentless domination, the people will suffer. That's why they were there. Otherwise, they could have just said, screw it, why should we continuously sacrifice ourselves in this cause, in this continuous war, when we keep getting beaten down over and over and over again? Can you just give up? But no, they couldn't do that. They couldn't do that. Arjun said, I don't need you to fight my war for me, but I need you with me. He said, I need my friends with me. I don't want your power. I don't want your ability to control. Hey, you can come to the front. You can come, this space. I don't want anyone sitting on the concrete. It's cold. Thank you, come in. Have a seat. So what we're seeing there is true courage. We're seeing true courage. We're also seeing love. See love. Because when you love, you don't want the thing someone has. If you really love your parents, you don't go to them at Christmas just because they're going to give you a gift. You go to them because you love them, you want to see them. Right? When you ask someone to come and visit you, you're not asking them to come and visit you because you know that they're going to bring you a gift. You're not asking for that. You want them there because you love them. You want to see them. You want them with you. That's love. And in a battle for righteousness, and when we're activists fighting systems of oppression, that is a war of righteousness. That is what this is. We are in a continuous war, but the real war is within here. The real war is within the human heart. The continuous battle between the patriarchy and the toxic masculinity within you and the divine masculinity that's also within you, the divine femininity that's also within you. So Krishna says, I will be with you. The divine masculine says, I will serve you. Not I have to be at the front, commanding everyone, telling everyone what to do. No, I'll do what you tell me. I'll do what you tell me. I'll stand by your side. Divine masculinity doesn't mean always having to be at the front. Divine masculinity doesn't mean always being the one that everyone glorifies. Everyone looks up to you. Oh, everyone's like, oh yeah, this person's awesome, this person's the leader. No, Krishna was leading from behind. Krishna was leading from behind. And Arjun knew that without Krishna's counsel, without Krishna's wisdom, without Krishna's guidance, that we have no hope of winning this. Without divine masculinity, without the wisdom of divine masculinity, without the love of the divine masculine, we have no hope of fighting toxic masculinity. That's what Arjun knew. And that's why he said, Krishna, will you steer my chariot? And every day, when we're in this battle, that's what we should be praying for. Krishna, please steer my chariot. Whenever I go out and I'm speaking in any place, before I do anything, I always say, Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. Shri Krishna Sharanam Mama. That means I am in Krishna's shelter. He's my guide. He's in this chariot with me. I'm not alone. Patriarchy convinces you you're alone. Patriarchy convinces you you're isolated. There is no way you can turn for help. There is no way you can turn for help. Who's going to help you satisfy your own body? Who's going to help you exploit other people? No one's going to help you do that, except other people who also want to exploit other people, and they'll end up exploiting you. That's what patriarchy does. That's why within a patriarchal system, you can't trust anyone. That's why within a capitalistic system, you're isolated and lonely and afraid. That's why within a racist system, you're always judged by your color. That's why within a patriarchal system, you're always judged for what sex you are, for what gender you are, for what your sexual orientation is. You're always alone. But within a cultivation of divine masculinity, you connect with others. When you cultivate divine femininity, you connect with others. That's why we do satsang. Satsang, when we come together, to discourse together, to talk together, to hear these stories together, to chant together, to sing together. That's satsang. We do that. Why? Because we're manifesting these qualities. And the fact that all of us managed to be here means that we're managing, in our small way, to resist the system. This is a radical act to be here. It's a radical act. It's an extraordinary act. And on January 1st, on a Sunday, it's amazing. So, what time is it? Make sure we have enough time. Okay, 2:30. So, I have another story, but we don't really have time to go into it, which is a shame. But I'm going to talk about the divine feminine quality. We've talked a lot about divine masculinity. But it's important to understand divine femininity. Within the Gita, right, the Bhagavad Gita is the divine scripture. The Bhagavad Gita is within the story of the Mahabharata. The Mahabharata is the story of this whole war that went on between the Pandavas and the Kauravas and their family. And Krishna is the hero of that story. He's not the one who fought the war. He's leading from behind. He's leading from behind. And as Arjun's charioteer, as the armies of both sides came to the battlefield of Kurukshetra, the field of the Kurus, that's what Kurukshetra means. This battlefield where this family, the family of humanity, is fighting itself. And in this battlefield, Krishna and Arjun sit in this chariot. And as Arjun looks upon the vast ocean of his cousin's army and the vast ocean of his own army, he says, I can't fight. How can I kill my own family? How can I destroy those closest to me? How can I fight my own blood? How can I fight those I'm supposed to love? He has a moment of weakness, of faint-heartedness. And you would think, and it's a good thing, right? Because it shows that he has mercy. But it's also weakness. Because remember, this is a war within the human heart. And within this war, there are going to be parts of yourself, the toxic masculinity within yourself, that you have to kill. But you're attached to them. You're attached to them. You love your addiction to cigarettes. You love it. You love your addiction to chocolate. You love it. It doesn't matter that people get exploited and children have to engage in slave labor and that this is actually destroying so many different parts of the world because they're cutting down forests in order to grow chocolate that cannot be grown in that climate because there's not enough water. We don't think about that. We love chocolate. There are going to be parts of yourself that you have to cut out, that you have to kill, and you have to kill them every single day. It's not enough just to be like, oh, okay, I thought we're done now. It's a continuous war every moment, in every day, in every movement, in every community, in every family. It's a continuous war. You and your ego, that's what the war is. And Arjun has this moment where he says, I can't fight. I can't fight. And in that moment, Krishna gives him the Gita. What is the Gita? The Gita means the Song of God. The Song of God, the wisdom of God. Krishna reveals to his devotee, to Arjun, he reveals all of the truths of this world. He reveals to him what is this war within the heart. He reveals with him this continuous battle with the ego, this continuous battle with lust, what we call patriarchy. That is what that war is. The systems of oppression that manifest, those are the outer ways in which this internal system of oppression manifests. The internal system of oppression is patriarchy, and it manifests in capitalism, colonialism, racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, in all of these different ways. Ableism, all of these different ways. And so, when he tells him this Gita, he says one thing. He says, among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. In other words, these are the qualities of divine femininity. Remember, the divine masculine and the divine feminine are one and the same. They are not different from each other. Radha and Krishna are not different from each other. So Krishna is saying, my divine feminine qualities are this: fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. Now what does that mean? Fame. When you act for the right causes, when you step up to resist oppression, Arjun, you must fight. When you do, you will exhibit fame. That is true fame. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. Remember, Ranchor. It doesn't matter what other people think of you. It's what you think of yourself. It's what you think of yourself. And when you manifest that, you manifest divine feminine qualities. It is divine femininity. When you manifest that fame, you will manifest fortune. What is fortune? Fortune doesn't mean money. Fortune means peace. When you step up to do something to resist injustice, the continuous anger against injustice becomes calmed within you. Because you know, I did something. I did something. It wasn't much. Maybe I didn't win, but I did something. If you don't do anything, you will live with this continuous knot of anger within you, knowing that there's injustice out there and you're doing nothing about it. Because all of us within us have this inherent need to fight injustice. That is our nature. You know why? Because we come from the divine masculine. We come from the divine masculine and the divine feminine. It is our nature to fight injustice. It is our nature to uphold truth, to uphold divinity, to uphold love, to protect each other. That's our nature. And yet, we've been indoctrinated with all of these things that tell us you're alone, you're weak, you're helpless, you need to just consume, consume, consume. Take, take, take. That's how you're going to fulfill yourself. Except you're never going to fulfill yourself that way. And so, when we do that, we manifest fortune. What is fortune? Peace. Peace. That's what fortune is. And that is the divine feminine. And when you manifest that peace, you will also manifest fine speech. Fine speech, what does that mean? Fine speech. To speak the truth. To speak love. To speak of the path of devotion. This is Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga. I'm teaching you Bhakti Yoga right now. Bhakti Yoga means the path of love and devotion. That's what this is. When you manifest those qualities, you will say you will manifest fine speech. You will speak in a way that other people will hear you. Other people will hear you. Right? When you exhibit the divine feminine, you can talk anyone into anything. And you can talk anyone out of anything. When you manifest the divine feminine within you. And there are moments when some of us would have had experience with this. Where we're in a situation where we're talking to someone who's exhibiting so much toxic masculinity, we don't even know how to respond. And yet somewhere within us, there is a core of strength within us that tells us, be calm. Hold strong, stand your ground, speak, say these words, say them, and somehow, you don't know how it happens, but somehow the situation turns. If you have manifested this, you will have had experiences like that in your life. Whether it's a personal experience, whether it's in the workplace, whether it's an action, whether it's in your organizing community. Fine speech, memory, the ability to remember what needs to be done. Because in the heat of the moment, we forget what matters most. In the heat of the moment, we forget what we're there to do. In the midst of an action, you might completely forget that you're there fighting the patriarchy. And you might just think of this person, this security guard, or this worker, or this policeman, or this whatever it is, as your enemy. You're not there to fight this person. You're up against the system. You forget. But when you're manifesting divine feminine qualities, you'll remember. You won't forget. You'll know what really matters, why you're really there, who you really are, what your true purpose is. And when you remember that, you manifest intelligence. Intelligence is a divine feminine quality. Intelligence comes from the divine feminine. And when we manifest that intelligence, we see the bigger picture. We see, it's not just, okay, these are going to be my tactics and I'm going to do this. It's, what is my strategy around these tactics? What is the long-term goal? Am I just here to stop this police precinct? Or am I here to dismantle the patriarchal empire? Because that is just one small, tiny, little, minuscule step in the giant movement, in the giant war that we're in. So intelligence, when you manifest that intelligence, and beyond that, knowing that I'm up against this patriarchal power. Why? Because I am not my body. And therefore, this is a spiritual movement. It can only be a spiritual movement. It cannot be anything but a spiritual movement, because as long as people believe that they are their body, they will exhibit toxic masculinity. So intelligence will arise, and from intelligence, steadfastness. You'll hold your ground. You won't back down. Not in an egotistical, yeah, all right, let's take it outside then, way. Not in a, oh yeah, I'll fight ya, way. But in a, what is our true goal, and how do we get there, and how do we become relentless in getting there? And using our intelligence, and using our memory, and using fine speech, and using all of these things, how do we work our way towards that goal continuously? And within that, patience, knowing it's a long fight. This isn't all going to be solved in a day, or in a movement, or in an action, or in a, oh, this year, oh, but we didn't dismantle it this year, oh, never mind. No, people think that, oh, we didn't win immediately, therefore we're failures. That's toxic masculinity. Obstacles are going to come. They're going to show up. But when you manifest the divine feminine, patience will arise within you. You will know this is a long war, and I'm in it for the long haul, and not just in this life. Lifetime upon lifetime, you have been fighting this war. The problem was you didn't know it. That was the problem. You didn't know it, and we just fight relentless, lifetime upon lifetime upon lifetime. Even within your own body, right? If you look at it from a Western patriarchal scientific perspective, there are cells in your body. Next month, those cells will be replaced with other cells. The old cells will be dead, and you'll have new cells. So in effect, you'll be a new person. In effect, you'll be a completely new person. You'll be a new body, and yet you're still you in the same war. That is what has been going on for lifetime upon lifetime upon lifetime. And that's why we think, oh, we fought World War II. Didn't we defeat the Nazis? No. Because we didn't defeat the Nazi within us. We didn't destroy the prejudice and the patriarchy, the control and the domination and the aggression and the violence within us. So we have to manifest these divine feminine qualities. And that's why Krishna says, Arjun, among women, I'm fame, fortune, fine speech, memory, intelligence, steadfastness, and patience. Arise, Arjun. Pick up your weapons. You're in a war. You are a spiritual warrior. That is what your purpose is. That is who you are. And if you were not a spiritual warrior, I would not be here with you in your chariot. I am with you here. I will always be with you here. Now the choice is yours. Krishna revealed all of this wealth of knowledge, the cream of all of the Vedas. The Vedas are our scriptures, the core of our scriptures. And our sages say the cream of all of the knowledge that is within the Vedas is contained within the Bhagavad Gita, is contained within the Song of God. So within the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna reveals all of these things. And, what time is it? It's 2:41. So we have 20 minutes left. Is there anything booked after this, do you think? Do you think we'll be kicked out immediately?
I don't think so. I can see.
Okay, great. So we have time to do some chanting and a little bit of time for questions. If you want, we can do questions first and then we can do chanting at the end. Is everyone okay with that? Okay, we'll do questions and we'll have a progressive stack with questions. That means people who normally don't have privilege get to ask their questions first. So go ahead, raise your hand if you like. It's a good thing to ask questions, by the way. The entire Bhagavad Gita is a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, where Arjuna asks question after question and Krishna answers. It is not just a lecture. It is not just Krishna saying, this is how it is, Arjuna. It is Arjuna actually like debating with him, actually saying, wait, you said this, but what about this? And then Krishna saying, oh, but Arjuna, you haven't considered this. And let me reveal all of this to you. And since I love you so much, I'm going to reveal even more. I'm going to tell you even more. The most confidential knowledge, the deepest secrets of creation, Krishna reveals. So asking questions is never a bad thing. It is literally what my entire culture is based on. Wait, hang on. Was there anyone else? No? Okay.
If that's what Arjun did, then wouldn't it make more sense to ask questions during the last hour and a half instead of leaving them all to the end? Did Arjun leave them all to the end?
No, but that was a different situation. You're not on a battlefield. And it would interrupt the flow of the storytelling. So that was a conversation, and this is philosophy. So in a satsang situation, yeah, we could all get together and we could do that. But in a situation where you are being taught and then there is a conversation, that is more beneficial, because otherwise all of the things that I just told you, you wouldn't have the benefit of knowing before you ask your questions. So that's one. And my time. Okay, wait. Go, you, and then Michael.
I noticed when you were speaking that you, at some points, use ego and also toxic masculinity kind of interchangeably. So would you say that you, in many ways, define toxic masculinity as the ego, as we would say in Western culture?
So it's so it's basically like stages. So the ego is there. And what the ego says is, I am. Right? The ego tells you that you exist. That's a good thing. Because if you didn't have an ego, you wouldn't survive. So it's a good thing. And the ego, because the ego tells you I exist, you pursue a spiritual understanding of why you exist. So the ego in and of itself is not a bad thing. But the ego's weaknesses are lust, greed. Those weaknesses manifest, and therefore we become egotistical, where everything's about us. And that ego has those weaknesses because the ego says I am, but the ego says I am my body, right? And so if you're your body, you want to get everything for your body. That's why you then have lust and greed. And lust and greed manifest in patriarchal tendencies. And patriarchy manifests in sexism, colonialism, racism, capitalism, right? So, and toxic masculinity are the day-to-day ways in which those systems of oppression that come from patriarchy, that come from ego, manifest in our everyday lives. So toxic masculinity is the physical and emotional manifestation and experience that we have every single day of living in an egotistical body and an egotistical experience of life. That is that's what they are. So they're not the same thing, but they are linked. You had a question?
The Pandavas engaged in the gambling, and as a result, gambled their wife.
Mm-hmm.
So, if they were following Krishna's path, why did they engage in that play?
Because we all have toxic masculinity within us. That's exactly right. We all have toxic masculinity within us. The band of us were in that dice match. They could have said no. They could have said, we don't want to gamble. We don't want to engage in that. But they still did it. You know why? Because they were like, well, we're warriors. We can't back down from a fight. We can't back down from a fight. And within that fight, we've lost everything. We've even lost ourselves. What do we have left? Our wife. We'll stake her too. They made horrific mistakes. And even within those horrific mistakes, you can still work to redeem yourself. It doesn't mean that you, within this path, can never make a mistake. You're going to, because you have been indoctrinated with toxic masculinity, and your ego tells you you are your body. Within the spiritual experience, we are working to manifest these divine qualities, and through the process of worship, and faith in this path of Bhakti Yoga, we are working to manifest those qualities so that we can come to this understanding of I am not this body. I am not a body, I am a soul, and therefore I have to live a life of love. I have to walk the path of love. Right? The Pandavas were trying to walk that. The one and only time in their life when they did not ask for Krishna's advice was before they went to that gambling match. The one and only time Krishna did not consult, Yudhishthira did not consult Krishna was in that time, and it was because he knew Krishna would say no. When we want to do something bad, all of a sudden we take off that wedding ring. The pictures of our family members, we put them down. We don't want to look at them. The cross or the orm or the altar or whatever it is that you have, right? All of it, you close the door. You're like, I don't need to look at that right now. Right? You don't tell them where you're going. Right? Because when toxic masculinity arises, our memory diminishes. Right? What is memory? Divine femininity. Our memory of who we are and what our true purpose is diminishes. Our patience diminishes. Our patience tells us this is the long haul. But toxic masculinity says now, now, now. Bigger, better, faster. Now, now, now. And so that was why that happened. Michael, and then
So going back to the story, I think I'm going to say his name correct. Krishna, after the 18 battles against the uncle and the uncle surrounding up, and there was a decision to retreat. My question deals particularly with accountability, because Krishna made a decision to detract, and the people closest to him that had his ear said, "Aren't you going to be a coward?" And so they disagreed with the decision that was being made, and the decision was made anyway after an explanation was given. So my question is contentions of accountability, because a lot of what we're doing right now is how do we work within the community and what happens when disagreement occurs.
divine femininity. Among women, I am fame, fortune, fine speech. He talked them into it. He talked them into it. When you exhibit divine femininity, you will speak with love. You'll speak from the heart. You will speak from a vulnerable place. Krishna was saying, these wars that are happening because I engaged in violence against my uncle. I killed my uncle. I did what I had to do in order to protect my people, but I still engaged in violence. In order to defend us, engaging in more violence is not going to help us. It didn't help the first time around. Why would it help the 19th time around? So he was vulnerable. He said, look, the first 18 battles didn't help. We need to retreat. He was willing to be vulnerable. He was willing to allow people to slander him. He was willing to step up and say, it doesn't matter what people think. I'm still going to say what needs to be said. And he still said it from the heart. I'm saying it because I love you. I'm saying it because I want to protect you. I'm saying it because we all need to hear this. It's not like he was the only one who was going to be called a coward. That all of them are going to be called cowards. He had to convince all of them to not care. Think about that, right? So that means that when we manifest divine femininity, we speak from the heart. And we speak in a persuasive manner. And it's not that we're trying to manipulate each other, right? It's not manipulation. Manipulation is divine. It is toxic masculinity. That's what manipulation is. Indoctrination, control, domination, aggression, abuse, mental and emotional abuse, emotional blackmail. That's toxic masculinity. But divine masculinity will ask you to manifest courage. Divine masculinity will ask you to manifest love. It will ask you to be vulnerable so that we can protect each other.
A couple of follow-ups.
Follow up, yeah.
Okay, so as a human being, I'm not going to have the understanding of that. To be able to know that what I'm asking or what I'm suggesting is correct. What happens if I'm wrong and I'm attempting to convince people otherwise? Or another way to view it is I am correct and I'm not able to convince or encourage other people to go along with what is they disagree and move in a different direction. Do we go with them to follow the protection like being in the chariot? Complex situations and taking a look at this without being divinely inspired.
We live in crooked times. Here's the thing. Before you try to convince anyone of anything, you have to know that what you're doing is right.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know that what you want to do is right. That means you have to do soul searching. That means you have to ask yourself difficult questions. That means you have to go and look at your own actions and say, at what point was one of these actions or any of these actions or all of these actions toxic masculinity, right? Where is the toxic masculinity? What am I ashamed of here? What do I know I've done wrong? And what am I not aware of that I've done wrong? So you seek the counsel of others. You seek the counsel of those who you respect. In our tradition, we have gurus. In our tradition, a king would never go to war without consulting his gurus, without consulting those who come from a lineage of wisdom and non-violence and love. Yog, you know what yog means? Yog means to unite. To unite yourself with the divine, that is the path of yog. And there are different ways to do it. There are 4 different paths. We are talking about bhakti yoga, which means the path of love and devotion. So within the path of love and devotion, we manifest stories, and we talk about stories, and we sing, and we chant mantras together, and we come together, and we build community, because that builds love, right? So within our bhakti community, we go to those around us that we respect, who we go to our elders, we go to people who are impartial, people who don't know, who don't have a personal invested feeling in this. Go to people who are outside and say, this is what the situation is. I don't know if I'm wrong. I don't know if I'm right. Advise me. And when we look at that, when we look at things that way, we will come to a better understanding of our own actions. And when we have a better understanding of our own actions and our own desires, because at any point we have to ask ourselves, why am I really doing this? Am I doing this because I want something out of it? Or am I doing this simply because it's the right thing to do? And the Gita, Krishna says to Arjun, Arjun, if you're doing this because you want something, because you want wealth, you want the kingdom, you want to exploit enjoyment, physical enjoyment, then you're fighting the wrong war. If you're doing this because you're fighting a war against the ego, because you're fighting the war within the human heart, because you are manifesting divine qualities, because you're doing this in service to me, because you're serving the divine, this is the holy war. If you're doing it for those reasons, then you're fighting the right war. And if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, then you should be on the other side. That's why they're all there. So Krishna explains, never do anything wanting something out of it. Never do anything wanting anything other than God. That's what we should want. That's what our desire should be. It's natural to desire. We exist. It is natural for us to desire. What Krishna says is, turn your desires from the material to the spiritual. Turn your desires away from what the ego is telling you is me, my body, pleasure, 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 lust, lust, lust. Turn it away from that and turn it towards love. Turn it towards peace, turn it towards beauty. That is what Krishna is embodying. Does that answer your question? Okay, Andrew?
Things to help you like stay grounded and making the right choice. Like, the idea like when the family did consult with Christian, I feel like a lot of times my life is split like the way my ego is trying to do this. and my spiritual side, I feel like that memory part really vibes with me because it makes you remember it and bring you to
Right.
go in the right direction.
So spiritual practice helps us to manifest these qualities, right? In the path of Bhakti Yoga, spiritual practice is engaged in developing a loving relationship with God, right? And we see God as a person because it's very difficult to love the cosmos, right? It's very difficult to love the void. Yeah, God is everywhere and nowhere. How do you love that, right? It's easier to love a person. And so within the path of Bhakti Yoga, that's why God is personified, right? God is Krishna, God is Radha, God is Ram, God is Sita. And God has many different forms, right? What do you gravitate towards? What do you gravitate towards the divine masculine, the divine feminine, non-binary, transgender? What do you want? Right? It's up to you. That's the beauty of Bhakti Yoga, because Bhakti is about love. And that's a two-way street. That's not just you're just giving and the other person is just receiving. Love is two ways. So God gives you what you want. So if you want the divine masculine, so for example, I gravitate towards Krishna because that's what I want. That's where I go. Some people would go more towards the divine feminine or a different form of the divine masculine, like Shiva or Ram, or any of these many different types that we see in different religions and different paths and different philosophies. So when we practice spiritually, when we practice every day with memory, with steadfastness, with patience, that helps to lessen the time we have to do bad things. I'm not kidding. It is a very practical concern. Srila Prabhupada, who founded the Hare Krishna movement, he told all of his disciples to do 16 rounds of chanting a day. 16 rounds. So one round, these are my beads, right? So one round is 108 beads. And you would chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra on one bead, every bead, all the way around. That's one round. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. That's one round. 16 times. If you're doing it fast, it takes 2 hours. If you're doing it slow, it's going to take a lot longer. Every single day. You know why? Because if you're doing it every single day, it's that less time for you to get involved in things that will be toxic for you. And not only that, but it's practice. And when you practice, you develop memory. Right? That way, when you're in a chaotic situation, in a situation where, oh my God, stuff's going down, you don't know what to do, but you're practiced in Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare, that will automatically come to your lips. What fine speech? The finest speech is the name of God. The finest speech is the name of God. When you're in a bad situation, chant the name of God. Yeah, when you're in a bad situation, chant the name of God. When you're in a dangerous situation, or when you're in a situation where you really want this thing, chant the name of God. And you will find that the fires of lust within you, and that doesn't just mean sexual lust, it could mean any desire, that those fires within you, they will calm. They will calm, but chant it with love in your heart. That helps. And when you're in that situation, the moment you come to a realization that what I'm about to do is toxic, that's an opportunity. The amazing thing is that you even came to that realization. Most people don't even come to that realization because they're so enmeshed in it. They're so entangled in it. They don't even know, it doesn't even occur to them, this is toxic. Once you get to a point where you realize that you're about to do something toxic, stop. Immediately stop. Back away. Whether it's physically, mentally, whatever it is. Right? Back away. Ask yourself, why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I really here? What is my motivation? And ask yourself, can I ask Krishna if this is okay? If I know instinctively he's going to say no, I shouldn't do this. If it's a moral dilemma, because we have moral dilemmas where we don't know, it's okay to ask him. It's okay. And you can ask Krishna in your heart, you can ask elders around you, you can ask people you respect. go to others, ask for counsel. You can do that. It's okay to do that. You need help, right? That's what Bhakti Yoga is where we need to come together to help each other. So in those moments, spiritual practice is key. And using the time that you have, and it could be any time. You could be walking down the street. That time that you have walking down the street, now you might want to put on some abrasive sounds and be listening to some angry music, but instead of that, you could also be chanting the name of God. You could be listening to, your guru or various other teachers giving discourse. You could be, when you're just sitting at home doing nothing, you could be listening to that. You could be thinking about that. You could be reading spiritual books. You could be discoursing with others who have the same interests as you do, who care about spirituality, who want to know these things. So fill your time with positive things, and it makes it harder to fill your time with toxic things.